Vincent Canby of the New York Times calls it inoffensive and sometimes funny. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times refers to it as an abdication of artistic responsibility at the lowest possible level of ambition. And Ian Nathan of Empire Magazine calls it nonsense but fun nevertheless, with a crazy ensemble cast of celebrities of the era. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of the Cannonball Run.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be?
The Ruined Childhoods Podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters. Welcome to another episode of Ruined Childhoods, your favorite podcast in which beloved movie franchises are discussed and celebrated and speculated upon in regards to potential sequels, remakes, reboots, adaptations, musicals, television series, or pretty much anything else that the powers that be want to do. I am Dan Wiener, one half of your hosting team.
Hey, I'm John. I'm Dan's brother, and excited to be recording this podcast. We've had a couple of opportunities that slipped through our fingers to record this episode, but here we are, making it happen.
Yes, we are determined as ever.
Yeah, and before we get into the Cannonball Run series, which, oh my God, are we excited to talk about the Cannonball Run series? A movie, well, I guess I'd say movies that neither of us had ever seen before. That's correct, right?
And yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more after we talk about some news. But basically, I'm pretty sure that over the years, throughout my, decades of watching HBO and turning it on randomly, or probably not even HBO, like WPIX Channel 11,
right?
Those in the New York metropolitan area would know. I believe I have seen parts of Cannonball Run and Cannonball Run 2. I don't know that I had ever seen either of them beginning to end in their entirety before. This is certainly not a franchise that we grew up with or have like a close emotional bond to until now.
Correct. And speaking of things that we grew up with, we got an email from a friend from our hometown, Cranford, New Jersey, Chris Dambola.
Yeah, hey, Chris.
So Chris, who I'd noticed had been liking our posts on our Instagram feed at Ruined Childhoods Pod. This is a long email. Do I just go ahead and read the whole thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Chris writes, I'm a bit behind, but forgive me. I just finished Masters of the Universe, and I have strong feelings. First, it was not a pile of garbage, John. You are a pile of garbage. Okay, fair.
John, you're not a pile of garbage. It's okay.
I suggest that maybe he watch it again. Like soon. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, there's a difference between a movie actually having the qualities that make a film of quality and the qualities that make it fun to watch.
Which clearly we find it fun to watch. So
Masters of the Universe falls entirely in one category, yes, and really not at all in the other.
Absolutely. All right. So moving on, he says, second, one aspect that the Netflix documentary harped on was how basically the entire franchise is a sham because they took a toy-first approach and cared 0% about sensibility of characters and backstories. You didn't focus on this much except to shit on Beastman and other lackadaisical nomenclature. Despite this, you highlighted appropriately the impact this had on our childhoods, because you know what? When you are 5 to 7 years old and playing make-believe, do you know what you name a gnarly character? Fucking Beastman. I think it's
That's right.
I think it's healthy to sometimes throw away sensibility and create something grounded in nothing. I don't disagree.
No.
I mean,
we're going to talk about the Cannonball Run today. I mean, geez.
Sure. But to that, I will also say, when you are Canon Films and you are trying to break through and make a quality major motion picture blockbuster, you should put a little bit more thought into those things.
If you're going to refer to it as the Star Wars of the 80s and then put that quote on advertisements as though it was said by a critic, maybe go to some effort to make it a little bit more of that quality.
Yeah. And then moving on, he says, third on the future, I think it can only go one of three ways. 1, serious. I'm thinking original Dolph Lundgren Punisher or later R-rated Wolverine. I'm imagining he means like Logan. Elevate the entire movie to the candor embodied by Frank Langella and maybe get a little dark. Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go Frank Langella all the way. 2, fun. You mentioned Thor, but I am thinking more Guardians of the Galaxy or Ragnarok level comedy with serious action in between. I mean, I feel like it was already kind of in that camp a little bit.
I guess maybe take that and then add like significant budget and
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess budget.
Yeah. And then 3, more fun. Think of the generation that this would be for. Is it to attract a new generation of kids? Maybe, but also fuck them. It's for us, 33 to 39-year-olds. Plus, I should mention, our generation in particular appreciates absurdity, though we are also burdened by a deluge of post-scary movie parody exhaustion. It would be a delicate balance.
That's true.
One thing you said stuck with me about how this battle has been going on for God knows how long. What if they all ended up back on Earth and for some reason had to assimilate, but then there was a catalyst to re-engage? Will Forte plays He-Man, who has lost all of his muscle but kept his bowl cut. Maybe too much of MacGruber and a blonde wig. Love MacGruber, by the way. Have we talked about MacGruber?
I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the pod.
MacGruber is so good. Anyway, moving on. Chris says he tries to get to the gym, but resents his trainer, Dolph Lundgren, and only works out in a maroon Speedo and boots. Chris, I imagine you haven't gotten to our Rocky IV episode yet because you will have some thoughts following up on that. In one scene,
I love the idea, by the way, of Dolph Lundgren as He-Man's personal trainer.
Sure. Yeah, right? In one scene, you see He-Man burying his cat in the backyard and discussing how he has coped with loss over the years. Then the camera pans out to show a couple other cat graves and one garage-sized plot for Battle Cat with the helmet sitting on top. Louis Anderson plays Skeletor that is completely given up and joined a bowling league in somewhere like Ohio where he effectively blends in. Wendy McClendon-Covey plays She-Ra, but keeps getting distracted from the mission to pick up younger dudes as a stereotypical cougar. Love you both. Please keep ruining my goddamn childhood. Stay Cranford, Chris Dimble. Chris, thank you so much for writing. Hope it's okay with you that I just read that entire email on the podcast.
Yes. But, you know, yeah, if anyone ever does email us and does not want their email read, please let us know.
It should be the first line, if not the subject line.
What was interesting about what Chris was saying is it kind of reminded me of kind of something that I had been thinking, because, you know, the original plot of the hypothetical Masters of the Universe sequel that never happened with Dolph Lundgren and Frank Lundgren, or actually it would have been not with Dolph Lundgren. I forget who was taking over, but anyway, they do have to return to Earth. But the idea about the assimilation, like how kind of like that humorous bit of the Eternians trying to assimilate, it kind of made me think of the Brady Bunch movie, which I think is one of the most brilliant adaptations of one material and turning it into something totally different and funny.
It's truly brilliant. It's so good.
And I would I think a He-Man movie in that vein would definitely be interesting. I like I said, I like Chris's idea of Dolph Lundgren. I like the idea of Wendy McClendon-Covey as as She-Ra.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a fun concept to play with. It feels a little more like a sketch.
Yeah.
Like a good quality sketch than a full length film. But then again, you know, I imagine some said the same about the Brady Bunch movie and really turned out to be a fine piece
Brady
of work.
Bunch movie is always a good time to watch, and that's one that falls into the category to the several categories of like just super fun to watch, but also just really really smart.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things I love about the Brady Bunch movie, and then we'll move on because there are many things I love about it. I love how the style of the film changes when they're on the Brady property, because they're also, when they're in the backyard, it still looks like the show,
a set,
and when they're in the house, it looks like the show. But then as soon as they walk out the front door, kind of leave the Brady property, it's so incongruous, and the style just becomes like standard mid-90s movie comedy style.
There's a song in that movie that plays at the end in like the Battle of the Bands, and it's like the neighbor kid, like his grunge band, and their band's name is Phlegm, and the song always gets stuck in my head, and it's just them going, "We are Phlegm, we are Phlegm."
Yes. That band fronted by the one of the best actor names out there, Jack Noseworthy. Also, View 571. I know he had a few years where he was in a lot, but
Jack
Noseworthy.
So moving on, because we did not intend to talk about the Brady Bunch movie, and although I have no problem with it, I want to talk about a few bits of news that we have in the prequel, sequel, reboot, remake, etc. Categories. According to the Bill and Ted Twitter account, Bill and Ted Face the Music will be coming out next summer. They announced that the day we're recording this, which is Sunday, the 23rd of June. And so next summer, we can look out for Bill and Ted Face the Music. And in a similar Keanu Reeves universe, the Keanu-verse, there are rumors. There's nothing that's been like confirmed, but a new Matrix movie is in the works, and Michael B. Jordan is somehow involved. That is pretty much all that is known at this point. There is no information about exactly where it falls within the Matrix verse, whether it's a prequel or a continuation of the stories, or or maybe even just a reboot. So I don't know. Dan, did you have any thoughts on this?
Personally, I think they kind of exhausted. I think what happened was The Matrix came out in 1999 and was more than just a Keanu Reeves sci-fi action flick, a Johnny mnemonic, if you will, and it turned out to be like this, like philosophical. There's all this philosophy, and then came the other two Matrix movies, which were like, all right, let's really tap into all this philosophy and all this depth that people found in the first movie, and then let's just like kill it and overdo it. And I found like the second and third Matrix films, Matrix Reloaded and Matrix
Revolutions.
I was like Matrix Rebooted, Matrix Remastered, Matrix 4K. I feel like they've kind of exhausted it in that direction, but where there's still story to be told in that universe is prior to the original Matrix. And I've always felt, we don't get much backstory on Morpheus. Mm-hmm. We get some hints of backstory from the films, but we don't get a lot of backstory. We don't get backstory about, when did, at what point did it become the Matrix? At what point, how did this all happen? Who first kind of figured out, hey, we're in the Matrix.
Right.
So, I feel like a prequel, and maybe it's, who knows, maybe Michael B. Jordan is playing Morpheus, or maybe he's playing a new character. He's huge right now, and he's also a very, very talented actor.
Well, there's also the other question, not to talk too much about the Matrix films, but what if Neo wasn't the first person they thought was the one, and maybe there was somebody else that they brought in and it didn't work out so great. So
the other one,
the original one, this is the one, but we all know
the first one.
It's not.
This is the one. It's not the one. It's a one.
The other bit of sequel news that I have, and this is less news and more of just like, hey, interesting information. But Space Jam 2 will feature players from both the NBA and the WNBA. Interesting. That's all.
That's great.
Yeah, of course. Now let's talk about the Cannonball Run. Oh boy.
Yeah, the Cannonball Run trilogy.
I did not watch the third one. I watched the first two.
So John, so this past week, we'll give a little personal insight here as to what this past week has been, at least on my end, which has kind of held us from recording. So we moved, and that's myself, my wife, and our 5-year-old finally completed this move that had been going on for weeks. Mm-hmm. And it is also for those new to the podcast, I am a language arts high school teacher, and it was our week of finals. Wanted to make sure things were prepared for that. And, the kids did presentations. It wasn't a whole big study and take a test thing. But so I was preparing for that and just kind of dealing with end of the year stuff and all this going on. And with all of this going on, so much of what I had to do was clerical. It was in my classroom, cleaning, opening up those file cabinet drawers where I just pretty much dumped papers. When I was I have way too many copies of this. I can use this for next year. So it was a lot of sorting. And in my classroom, I have a setup where I can stream and I can watch movies. So over the course of this week and over the course of my various tasks of whether it was just doing loads of laundry and folding, I managed to watch Cannonball Run.
Oh, God.
Cannonball Run 2 and Speed Zone, which is kind of the unofficial Cannonball Run 3. I think it was in some countries was released as Cannonball Madness, was it? Or so, and from Cannonball what I believe, the only tie is the Sheik. Is that correct? Yeah. Jamie Farr's character is the only one. And he returns in a cameo, but that, and it's that they're just running the Cannonball race. Yeah, he's got a couple of moments, but we'll get to Speed Zone. Speed Zone, I will say I think all of these movies exceeded my expectations of how much I would enjoy them. Not that there weren't quite a few things I found questionable, and this definitely falls into the camp. This definitely falls into the camp of has a lot of qualities that make it a fun movie to watch, but not necessarily a lot that make it a piece of quality filmmaking. I'd say that plot-wise, they're very loose. There's really not much as far as stakes go. Yes, there is a the plot of these movies is that there is a cross-country race and the winner gets X amount of dollars. I know in the second movie, it's $1 million or $2 million. The first movie, I don't remember how much it is, but it's just a cross-country race. And the characters that are there running the race, sure, they all have desires for the money. And in the first one, it's mostly the biggest stakes are really with Sammy Davis Jr. And Dean Martin's characters who owe a $30,000 gambling debt. I think gambling debt. They owe a $30,000 debt to the mob. And so that's really the only one that really has a lot of stakes. I mean, JJ, who is played by Burt Reynolds, just wants money. Yeah, I think isn't he, don't they hire him to do it? Doesn't someone hire him to do it? This is what happens when you cram 3 Cannonball Runs in the same week. They all kind of blend together. The thing is also, it's hard to remember because if that is true, it doesn't come up at all anymore. No. Yeah. No.
And paired with Burt Reynolds is Dom DeLuise, who plays Victor,
Of course.
who also plays the like Don Corleone mob boss in The Shadows.
Is it Don Cannelloni?
Yeah, Don Cannelloni. And it's, these movies are very silly and meta, and they don't really fall within the rules of filmmaking or storytelling for that matter. What's up?
Yeah, no, it's funny because when I read, I'm going to take it back to Chris's email. When I read Chris's email and he talked about the post scary movie overdose, I feel like Cannonball Run shares some DNA with those movies because it features a lot of very self-referential meta celebrity cameos.
Yeah, Peter Fonda.
Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra play. They don't play Dean Martin and Frank, or no, not Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra does play Frank Sinatra in Cannonball Run too. But Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. don't play Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., but they act like Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr.
And in the second movie, they actually sing lines from some of their songs. So it's just kind of like wink, wink at the audience. And it's like, we know we're not taking this seriously either. So you don't have to, audience. It's just that kind of thing.
I mean, and there's also in addition to that, which I feel like that's kind of commonplace among a lot of movies in the 70s and 80s, and then really up through the scary movie, all the aftermath of that. But it feels like, and then there's also a lot of this like casually, I don't want to say like racist and homophobic, but definitely racial, like there are these kind of racy comments and jokes made. They're not necessarily offensive. I mean, I would say
they're problematic.
The few of them, yeah, they're problematic. The objectification of women in these movies is, I mean, a selling point, was a marketing point for these movies. The fact that you have Adrienne Barbeau in a leather jumpsuit with the zipper down to her navel, or Farrah Fawcett, who talks about not wearing underwear. Not wearing underwear, and she clearly is not wearing a bra under the very thin white t-shirt that she has on, and she's basically just there to be a sex object for Burt Reynolds. Yeah,
so the reason why she gets paired up with Burt Reynolds is because she is an environmentalist, like activist, and she kind of naively
becomes a photographer.
Is she a photographer? I know she's trying to save the trees.
She's an environmental photographer. No, she just loves trees. She loves trees. That poem. She loves the poem. She loves trees.
And there's this guy who is trying to stop the race because he thinks that cars are destroying the environment. And
I thought he was a cop.
No, he's not a cop.
He wasn't a cop. So because I know the cannonball race is illegal.
Right.
So the cops are trying to stop it. That's actually a huge plot point in Speed Zone. Peter Boyle plays this half crazy, half fascist, or I don't know, I guess just 100% fascist, policeman who I don't even know what he does, but it's an illegal race. And yeah, so in the first one, it's the guy who wants to get it shut down. And yeah, I wasn't really clear on how she ended up going with Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, she ended up in his car because they needed, so JJ and Victor, Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise, they figured that the best way that they can win this race is if they drive like an EMT, like ambulance type of thing, because they got a siren. Right. But in order to make it legitimate, if they get pulled over, is to actually have a doctor and a patient in the back. It's really, really bizarre. So they find
And the doctors. Ooh, yeah.
So Victor finds this doctor who's like this crazy guy, and JJ's like, I don't want to know how you found this guy. And although he came in really handy when the cops did stop them, and they essentially trick Farrah Fawcett's character into being the patient. And then over the course of the race, they form a bit of a relationship. So that's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the second one, she's no longer there. They are, what are they? Oh yeah. They are in a military car. Burt Reynolds is dressed as like a general.
Oh yeah.
Victor's like some sort of private, and they are bringing they have a very highly radioactive nuclear something or other that they have to get to the East Coast or whatever it is. And and they take on these two who they think are nuns, but they're actually actresses who are in the Sound of Music. Which is Mary Lou Henner and Shirley MacLaine.
Shirley MacLaine. Yeah.
Sister of Dick Tracy. So it's just so bizarre, and it really all doesn't make any sense. It seems like it was all written in an afternoon and people were intoxicated, but it's good fun.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's funny because we'll talk about kind of the patterns of the how well they did at the box office, which is amusing. But if we're talking about just kind of ridiculous and absurd sequences from them, so Speed Zone was released in 1989. It bombed. It doesn't have a Rotten Tomatoes score. I had to find it on YouTube in order to watch it, like someone's like good dubbing of a VHS tape as it appeared. So now Speed Zone, it's just like all the other Cannonball Run movies. You know, there's the Smothers brothers are in it, but they play this other pair of brothers who are just like, you know, these really wealthy people. The others brothers. And then, Cannonball Run 2. Tony Danza is in it, and I'm pretty sure his character is named Tony.
Probably. Tony Danza, his character is in a car that is being pseudo-driven by an orangutan that flips people off.
Yep. It's the same orangutan from Going Ape, so he and Tony Danza had worked together before.
They have history, yeah.
So in Speed Zone, there's this part where the Smothers brothers are on a plane, and the stewardess is Brooke Shields, who I believe won a Razzie or was nominated for a Razzie that year for her performance. But I loved it. She's playing Brooke Shields. She's like a cranky stewardess for this low rate airline. If you can find Brooke, like the Brooke Shields scene from Speed Zone, it's worth watching because she's like just this really she's really sarcastic, and then the Smothers were like, wait, aren't you? She's like, yes. And they're like, yeah, you're Brooks. And she's like, Brooke, it's Brooke Shields. And they're like, what are you doing as a stewardess? And she's like, well, after 4 years at Princeton, my professors thought that I needed to do something to get in touch with the real world. And like, this is it. And and now, of course, this is humor that you could do in 1989. Not so much maybe now, but someone hijacks the plane.
Ew.
And they, no, they hijack the plane and they're like, all right, this is a hijacking. This plane's going to Nicaragua. And then one of the passengers goes, oh, do you think we could go to Costa Rica? And say, no, why don't we go here? And they start naming all of these other Latin American countries. So the people on the plane aren't panicked at all. They just want to go somewhere else in Latin America, not Nicaragua or El Salvador. It's one of the two where he says we're going, and then everyone's like, no, let's go to Argentina, and which I know is not Latin American, that's South American. But
we also need to talk about Roger Moore.
Wait, hang on, before we get to Roger Moore. So just when you think this scene is like not going to get any more bizarre, Brooke Shields comes out with a food tray and like hits the hijacker, and like, or no, the pilots come out. And by the way, the plane is taxiing at this time. Or the plane is like, it's taxiing on the runway, and so now the pilot comes out, the co-pilot comes out, the navigator, and they're all beating the crap out of the hijacker with like Brooke shields. And it's so weird and random and funny. I couldn't believe it, but I was like, my God, this is actually funny. But yes.
So yes, moving on to Roger Moore. Roger Moore also plays himself, but as if Roger Moore was James Bond.
But except his name is Sidney Goldfarb.
His name is Sidney Goldfarb, but he changed it to Roger Moore. And yeah, and that he was actually? I thought that he thought he was Roger Moore. Oh, you thought? See, I didn't get that impression from it.
I thought that he thought he was Roger Moore because when he's talking to his mother, she's like, "Oh, Sidney, just
right."
I didn't think he was.
But he drives.
Who cares?
He drives. Yeah, exactly. He drives like an Aston Martin, and with all these like switches and whatever inside of it, and he's with these like Bond girl type women, and he's like super cocky and everything. What else was there? Oh yeah, Jackie Chan is in it, and is one of his first American roles, playing a character named Jackie Chan, who is Japanese despite Jackie Chan being Chinese, and they drive the like super high tech Subaru that I don't know, can go underwater. Oh no, it was at the second one with Peter Keel.
That was the second one. Yeah, with Richard Keel. That was the second one.
Richard Keel, sorry.
Because they played the Jaws music when the car went underwater.
Yes. Because
Richard Keel had played Jaws in the James Bond movies.
Right. It's so...
And Jackie Chan was apparently a lot of what was supposed to be Roger Moore's character got put into Jackie Chan's character for the second one.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan's character, Jackie Chan.
It is such a weird meta...
Oh yeah,
series of
Jamie
movies.
Farr playing the Sheik, and do we know where he is from?
With the Sheik, where the Sheik is from?
Yeah, no, not where Jamie Farr is from.
The Sheik is just from somewhere in the Middle East.
The Middle East,
yeah,
from like Arab country.
Yeah, and the Sheik is extremely wealthy, is being driven in a Rolls Royce across the country. I mean, Jamie Farr, very, very funny. And Jamie Farr is of Lebanese descent, but is taking this Sheik character to the extremes. So that's another area where I was like, oh boy, they couldn't do this now.
Yeah, I forget who it is that like when he pulls up. They're getting takeout, and the girl who brings him the food, and he's like, "Have you ever thought of joining a harem?"
Yeah.
And at one point, they do actually call him or refer to him as a camel jockey.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They refer to Sammy Davis Jr. as a chocolate monk at one point.
Absolutely. It's extremely not okay. A lot of the language that's in these movies.
So and I guess just to talk briefly about box office, because like, why were there 3 of these movies if they're so ridiculous? The first Cannonball Run, it was the 6th highest grossing movie of 1981.
No kidding.
Behind Stripes, which was at number 5. The number 1 grossing movie that year was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Huh. I mean, it's kind of not surprising just because of the people who are in it. You know, you have a lot of star power.
Burt Reynolds,
who had already done Smokey and the Bandit with Hal Needham, the same director. And Smokey and the Bandit is, I mean, plot-wise, extremely similar. Smokey and the Bandit is Burt Reynolds, who takes on Sally Field's character, who's like a hitchhiker trying to get away from her.
She's a runaway bride.
She's a runaway bride. And
she's a runaway bride.
He and his partner are bringing beer over state lines or
like, I think they need to get it through Georgia, or they basically need to transport beer through like
illegally
dry states. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, trying to get away from, is it Jackie Gleason who's the cop, the Smokey?
Yeah, Jackie Gleason. Yeah,
and
I think his son was supposed to marry Sally Field.
That's right.
If I remember, so I watched it not too long ago. I watched it right after Burt Reynolds passed.
So did I.
Yeah. So back to the box office of 1981.
Yes.
So our top 5 are Raiders of the Lost Ark, On Golden Pond, Superman 2, Arthur, and Stripes. Then you've got Cannonball Run beating out Chariots of Fire, For Your Eyes Only, the James Bond movie of that year, The Four Seasons, and Time Bandits. And then also that year, just to put it in perspective, are the original Clash of the Titans, Warren Beatty's Reds, Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1, The Great Muppet Caper, Excalibur, American Werewolf in London. A lot of, Escape from New York was that year. So a lot of movies that have kind of stood the test of time. And, they might not have been the biggest money makers of that year. Thief is another, I think, classic from that year. But yeah, Cannonball Run number 6 at the at the box office that year, and it opened June 19th of that year up against Superman 2.
Yeah.
That was the only other new release that week. It was Cannonball Run and Superman 2. And it's funny because Stripes, For Your Eyes Only, Great Muppet Caper all came out the following week.
Okay.
Yeah. And so now Cannonball Run 2 begins the descent. Now Cannonball Run 2 had the misfortune of being released, and I just want to make sure about this, but I'm almost certain that Cannonball Run 2 was released on June 29th, June 29th, 1984, 1 week after The Karate Kid.
And so that's this week will be its anniversary.
How many weeks? And then a few weeks after Gremlins and Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So June 1984 was, I guess, not a good month to be released if you were not like an instant classic.
Right. I mean, I do believe, though, that Cannonball Run 2 is the final feature film with Frank Sinatra. And it's, considering Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin are also in it, it's like the last pseudo Brat Pack movie.
Well, Rat
Pack. Oh my God. I was so afraid I was going to say the wrong one too.
Was Anthony Michael Holland? No, well, also
Probably.
Shirley MacLaine. Shirley MacLaine was an honorary Rat Packer.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, Shirley MacLaine was kind of part of that whole crew, Vegas and all that. But yeah, so 1984 is when Cannonball Run 2 comes out. And despite all of these things, it lands number 32. It is beaten out by The Last Starfighter at number 31.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like the top movies that year, Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Gremlins, The Karate Kid, Police Academy, the original at number 6. And then let's see, where did Speed Zone land?
Oh boy.
Now, of course, what's funny is Speed Zone was released in 1989, where the top movies of that year are, Batman, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade,
right?
Lethal Weapon 2, Ghostbusters 2. So it's kind of like Cannonball Run is just not doing well. And Speed Zone ends up not even in the top 100. It ends up, I want to say, at like 120.
Oh, wow.
It did not. Let's see. Oh, yearly 131. It was placed at 131. for 1989.
31. Wow.
Yeah, and it was released April 21st, 1989. And yeah. Yeah.
So, Dan,
Yeah,
what
John.
would you like to happen with this franchise?
Well, and and this is kind of a question that I wanted to ask you and see what your thoughts were, because the first thing, as I was watching original Cannonball Run and thinking about, oh wow, like back in the 70s and 80s, like you could do a movie like this, and not even with all the the non-PC jokes and all that. Honestly, you could get rid of that and still have a movie.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, all of the kind of the meta jokes and everything, the humor really relied on this kind of universal celebrity. The fact that like, okay, everyone knows who that Charles Nelson Riley is in Cannonball Run 2. And it's Charles Nelson Riley was not like necessarily an actor. He would just be Charles Nelson Riley in a costume being Charles Nelson Riley. Like it's Alec Baldwin's impersonation of Charles Nelson Riley is so spot on. But my question was, does Cannonball Run have a place in entertainment today? As a movie, as a film, does it have a place?
I mean, I kind of felt like now's a pretty good time to reinvigorate this series. And I think that also there are plenty of opportunities to get really meta with it and to just have a lot of fun with it. And do you mind if I go ahead and kind of...
You go ahead. I'm curious to see where you landed on this, because So
what I was thinking is, and this is somebody we've mentioned before in the role of director, but this would be director and lead role, like in the Burt Reynolds role. So if this is, I'm thinking a reboot / like pseudo sequel, it's like the Cannonball Run race hasn't been done in 30 years. And
it is back. The actual Cannonball Run race is happening.
Oh, is it actually happening now?
This is it's a real thing.
I know it's a real thing, but I thought that they did the last one before the movie was made.
No, I think it's come back. I don't know if it's still a cross-country race,
Gotcha.
But it is still a thing. I actually think that there was like a documentary style TV series on it starring, I think, Bill Goldberg might have been the former pro wrestler and auto enthusiast Bill Goldberg.
Fair enough. So I was thinking it could be directed by Dax Shepard, who did Hit and Run and Chips, and is, I think, really good at the just like fun comedy. And I think this would have to be like an R-rated comedy, which is kind of becoming a thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we have somebody like Dax Shepard behind the wheel, if you will, and then we get people involved, and clearly there can be plenty of other, actors doing their thing. But in the Roger Moore role, you could have Daniel Craig doing it. You could have Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly in there. I'm trying to think of people who were in movies where they are drivers. So Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly are maybe a pair. Maybe
would you have them as Team Shake and Bake from Talladega Nights?
Either yes, or they would be so similar to those characters and have a very similar catchphrase.
How about what if you had Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels as one of the pairs?
I thought about that.
They're like
in the dog
car.
Like
no, maybe not in the. No, I'm thinking with them a little less like Dumb and Dumber, and a little more like either they're like the two dads of an engaged couple, or they're a couple. I don't know.
I've also got Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld. Perhaps they are drinking coffee
in cars.
Yeah.
Would you bring back Jackie Chan and team him up with Chris Tucker, or perhaps Jet Li?
It depends. Is it Rush Hour? We could have Frankie Muniz in there driving one of the Fast and Furious cars.
Frankie Muniz?
Yeah, from Malcolm in the Middle. You hear he's like a car racer now. and he like bought
No,
one of
I
the
had
cars
no
from
idea.
Fast and the Furious. Yep, it's true.
I had no idea.
Another thing I was thinking, you can get John Hamm in a Mercedes and Matthew McConaughey in a Lincoln, since they are the voices of those two car companies. Yeah, just do like stuff like that where it's like people you would actually want to see in these movies, but they're there for these like goofball reasons.
But damn, wouldn't McConaughey make a great kind of like a JJ, a new?
I feel like
Burt
he's
Reynolds.
a little old for a JJ.
Maybe. I don't know. See, I thought so, and I don't want to interrupt you. I won't start on my.
Oh
my
no,
rant.
I've just
Or
have
not
like
rant.
a list of other people I would want to see in it, but none of them are as like fall into that meta category.
I
So go
think
ahead.
so here's where I'm going with this, and man, did my head went in a million places. So I was thinking. So I was thinking along the same lines, Will Ferrell and, kind of like doing those pairs. I was thinking if you were going to try to have a JJ McClure, a like kind of male lead character, and I think Dax Shepard is great. I think Ryan Reynolds, who could use something that's not Deadpool
Right.
or Detective Pikachu. So I thought it would be a decent thing for Ryan Reynolds to do. Creatively, I had been thinking perhaps of like Broken Lizard as a team to shepherd this to the screen. And I was kind of thinking about the nature of it. And I was like, what would make me really excited to watch a Cannonball Run, and what format, what casting, what creative would allow it to be that like meta? And I don't know. I think that this should be a Happy Madison production. I would imagine. So think about, for Netflix.
Okay.
For Netflix. Because, what's going to get people to watch it? What if you just kind of pepper it with SNL vets? Get Mike Myers and Dana Carvey in a car together, see if you can get Eddie Murphy, get Chris Rock, you get David Spade, Steve Buscemi, Keenan and Kel.
Yeah, right.
Half of them is from SNL, and then with that, with Adam Sandler, you can get, Drew Barrymore. And then it doesn't just have to be SNL vets. Like, what are the Wayans up to,
Right.
Like, there's so many, and like new people, your Leslie Jones, your Kate McKinnons, your Maya Rudolph's, Rachel Dratch, Steve Martin and Martin Short. Get them in there for a cameo. Why not? They can play banjos. I would love it. What if you got Bill Murray and Chevy Chase?
Oh my God. Does anybody, I don't know if anybody would be comfortable enough for that. That's
the only way I would be interested in seeing it with Chevy Chase is if he was going to be stuck in a car with Bill Murray. But I don't know. I was just kind of I was thinking about that, and I was also kind of trying to think. I was like, all right, well, who else? What other companies have partnerships?
one thing to add to that. If it's a Happy Madison production and you're talking about people driving in a car, you have to have the O'Doyle family.
You have to have, right. You got to throw in the O'Doyles. Get Carl Weathers. Come on.
Sure.
There's so much. But I don't know. I was just kind of thinking, I was like, man, I just get like a classic, like SNL movie with just like, and it doesn't have to just be SNL people, but. And then the other thought that I had, and this is more of a like, okay, how would something like this realistically happen?
Whoa, hold on one more second. You know who is going to win the race though? Toons is the cat.
Toons is the, yes. Holy shit. Yeah. Toons has to win. Yeah, except then he drives off the cliff. He just drives off the Santa Monica Pier at the end or wherever
he's about to like punch his card, because that's how you actually get your time, is you punch a card. He's about to punch the card, but he drives off a cliff instead.
Mm-hmm. So that, I think I would love, and it doesn't have to be necessarily that, like, SNL specific, but I think that's a way that it could potentially happen. And I know also, I think WWE Films is now working with Netflix. And I know like Adam Sandler, who's, by the way, has adapted Burt Reynolds in the past with The Longest Yard. Not that that was the greatest movie ever. Also worked with a lot of WWE guys in that. So I think that kind of expands your kind of casting ability if you're doing it for Netflix. But if you're going bigger screen, then I would say if you're going big screen, I think, you know, going in that direction, maybe seeing, you know, who, whether it's a Dax Shepard, Jonah Hill, maybe involved creatively on this. The 21 Jump Street movies, I think, are great. Now,
I was just talking about those movies the other day. They're so good.
They're really a lot of fun.
They really are.
Very, very clever. They managed to do kind of like what the Brady Bunch did, but not what the Brady Bunch did. Right.
It gave you hints of those like insider jokes with certain cameos, like Peter DeLuise.
Oh, yeah. The Peter DeLuise, the cameos are so good.
Talking about Dom DeLuise, Peter DeLuise in 21 Jump Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Captain Chaos. Would you bring back Captain Chaos? Like,
definitely not.
No.
It's so dumb.
Well, the whole thing with Dom DeLuise's character, especially in the first one, is I'm like, this is not someone who seemed like this is someone who's being taken advantage of. He doesn't seem mentally all there.
You just made me think of something. So in the end credits, there is famously a blooper reel, and it begins with Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise cracking up so hard, and Dom DeLuise is laughing so hard that Burt Reynolds is just like slapping him around. And the sketch comedy group, The State, did a complete like remake of that, and I think that the people behind The State need to be involved with this.
So, John, I was going to ask you if you were aware of this, and I'm quoting here to a bit of news found on I want to say IMDb, but on June 4th, 2018, it was announced that Doug Liman was in early talks to direct the film, a Cannonball Run remake or reboot from a script by Thomas Lennon and Robert Ben Garant.
Oh my God! Yep.
Right. Now, I don't know if anything has moved forward on that. But
well, what's also funny about that is that I was even thinking about them because one of the people I was going to mention would have been Lindsay Lohan from Herbie Fully Loaded, which was written by them.
I didn't realize they wrote Herbie Fully Loaded. I never saw Herbie Fully Loaded. But I
don't think I did either, but they wrote it.
Okay. Well, there you go. I mean, you know, they've written a lot of, you know, big movies that aren't quite. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they even did they write a book about
writing movies for fun and profit, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
I read it.
I wanted to read it. Yeah. I mean, I like them. I'm a you know, big fan of The State, Reno 911, Thomas Lennon.
Yeah.
In general,
Ken Marino.
Really funny.
They're all amazing. Joe Trulio.
Ken Marino is involved with this. So I was talking about the Netflix WWE partnership, and they're doing a movie called The Main Event, which is going to co-star Ken Marino and Adam Pally.
Oh, no way. I love Adam Pally.
He's another, I like an actor who'd be great in the, you know, in that, you know who they should get to play instead of Roger Moore? You said Daniel Craig. Mm-hmm. It should be like, Idris Elba. I know I feel like I'm mentioning his name every week, but I'm like somebody who they've always talked about like, oh, this guy would be the perfect Bond. And then they don't never like him or Clive Owen. Uh-huh. Or like someone who everyone thinks played James Bond, but didn't. Like I probably Clive Owen would fit that.
Right. Well, anyway.
Yeah. So Ken Marino, yeah, I mean, a lot of ways that you could go with the new Cannonball Run, but I think just kind of the idea of just, hey, there's this race, it's illegal, and you add in all the, you know, modern technology and, you know, all that apps and all that stuff, and it just takes on a new dimension. I agree, it should be. I think it should be R-rated, although none of the other Cannonball Run movies are R-rated. So, but somehow I think it's just, if you're going to do it, I think you're also not making it for the kids today. You're making it for people who are old enough to go see R-rated movies.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know. I think it will be fun to have Cannonball Run pop up again. And hey, maybe the one written by Ben Garant and Thomas Lennon will happen. And then we'll be very happy. Yeah.
I'd be interested.
And if either of them are listening to this, if you want to incorporate some of our amazing ideas, you know, give John Hamm a call. Put him in the Mercedes. See what happens.
Throw John Hamm in that Mercedes, put McConaughey in the Lincoln, and let it ride.
Just let them. Don't even write their lines. Let them just do their thing.
Yeah. All right.
So the other thing that we've been doing is, for the month of June, we've been recasting the films of June Squibb, and we've just been recasting the top billed characters. And this episode, we are recasting the main characters from The Age of Innocence.
The Martin Scorsese 1993 classic
costume drama. It is the story of, and I don't know their characters' names, but Daniel Day-Lewis is engaged to Winona Ryder and eventually married to her, but he and Winona Ryder's cousin have a very deep passion for one another, and she is played by Michelle Pfeiffer. And it's just this like unrequited thing, and Winona Ryder is like kind of knows but doesn't want to, I don't know, ruin the whole thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
Watch it if you want to. I didn't.
I've seen it before. I know it's very pretty. It looks very nice. I always felt that Winona Ryder was just a little out of place. And she does a fine job, but I felt she was a little out of place.
Dan, who would you put in those three roles?
Okay, so let's start with the and this takes place, by the way, in I want to say it takes place in New York City in the like 19th century.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, late 19th century.
Because I was trying to remember if Daniel Day-Lewis, like what accent he used for this, and I think he's straight up American.
And they are socialites, to give you just some more context.
Yes, they are. So let's see. So starting in the Daniel Day-Lewis role, he plays Newland Archer, not Sterling Archer.
Newland Archer. Daniel Day-Lewis has the best character names.
What's his name in Phantom Thread?
Woodcock. What's his first name though? I don't remember the first name. Reynolds Woodcock. So good.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I don't know. I had some trouble. I had trouble thinking about this without watching it. But my pick for the Winona Ryder role, I guess the first name that popped into my head was Emma Stone.
Okay.
Who I guess I could also see her. I think it would be funny because I would almost love to see a Emma Stone, Rachel Weisz reunion here.
With the favorite is what we're referring to. So I thought something similar, but I decided to go in a different direction because we're actually recasting this movie for a modern, reboot. So I decided to go in a different direction. So what did you actually put down?
Oh, my actual picks for this, it was, well, I kept Emma Stone in the Winona Ryder role, and in the Michelle Pfeiffer role, the Countess Olenska, her name is, in that. Man, I was like, I don't know, I was really stuck on someone on like who I felt. Maybe it's because I just didn't remember the role that well, but I was thinking of and I forget her name, but she played the eldest daughter on Downton Abbey. Is it Jessica Brown Findlay?
I don't know, but I know who you're talking about.
I think she would be good. Oh, Sophie Turner would also, I think, be decent in that Winona Ryder, Emma Stone. She's kind of good at the, like, you know,
kind of
just
mysterious.
trying to hang on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for Daniel Day-Lewis, for the role of Newland Archer, I suppose, I'd be, for some reason, Joaquin Phoenix keeps popping into my head. And I don't know, I'm like, I would love to, that would be an interesting take, a Joaquin Phoenix, as Newland Archer in that, like, Daniel Day-Lewis role.
You don't think he's a little old?
Oh, I guess
considering
so.
the other people you're casting here.
Man, so I guess Jeffrey Rush is out. Okay.
Jeffrey Rush is a contender. I don't know. Put him in the makeup chair.
Jeffrey Rush can do anything. No, I don't. I don't know, John. It's like Age of Innocence is
okay.
Shit. I give up. What do you have
for the Daniel Day-Lewis character? I put Ryan Gosling.
Oh, right, James McAvoy. Shit,
James McAvoy would also be good. I was trying to think of who could be that, like, charming, wealthy, young, I don't know, just socialite. And Ryan Gosling, I felt, he just kind of nails that kind of stuff.
What about Christian Bale?
Too old.
Too old?
Yeah. For the Winona Ryder character, I thought Alison Brie, the kind of like, I feel like she's played this kind of character before where it's,
Trudy,
she has there's the plan and she's got to stick with the plan. Yeah, it's very, Trudy Campbell.
Her Mad Men character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's done a lot since then and grown as an actor. And I thought that, why not? And then for the Michelle Pfeiffer character, I was thinking Brie Larson.
So Alison Brie Larson.
Yeah, why not? Team Brie. Yeah, okay. Because I was also thinking Emma Stone for the Michelle Pfeiffer character, but I was like, Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, I think we're done with that.
Yeah, we're done with that.
We've done it twice. We're good.
Yeah, I'm good. Good on that. Good on that combo.
Anyway, thank you all for bearing with us in our month of June Squibb recasts. It was a weird idea.
Yeah. It's okay. It's all good. We went with it. So anyway, John, would you like to share what we have coming up on our? We're out of squibs. We're all squibbed out.
Yeah. So for the next episode, and this one will likely come out either mid or late July. We're taking a little bit of a summer hiatus, but we will be back in full force come August because we are going on a little family trip and I am bringing the microphones with me. So we will have plenty of time to record.
Who knows who's going to pop in on these episodes? Who
knows? But for the next episode, we will be talking about the classic film that you probably watched on Comedy Central, Summer School.
Summer school. Yeah.
Mark
Summer school
Harmon.
will be in session.
Summer school
Good
will be in
old Mark
session.
Harmon, Kirstie Alley.
Yep. It's a movie that I remember watching hundreds of times. It is truly bizarre and problematic, but we will talk about that on the next episode.
Yeah. And the teacher in me, very, very excited to talk about. I feel like, and I don't know if I should be admitting this, but like I do feel sometimes like my style is Mr. Shoop-esque. So,
oh boy,
I'll be bringing you the educator's perspective on summer school when next we speak.
Cool. Well, if anybody has any thoughts, please email us, ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com. Check out our Instagram @ruinchildhoodspod. And that's what I got. You got anything else, Dan?
Nothing else from me. No, I just a good journey to you all as we go cannonballing off into the sunset.
Good journey, everybody.
Good journey.